Now, one thing I noticed as soon as Super Mario Odyssey came out is that everyone loves those Broodal troublemakers. And I get why! They are quite iconic, and people certainly wanted to see something new after fighting the koopalings like for 100 years. However, originally, Bowser's henchmen were gonna look quite different, because I stumbled upon some interesting cut content. Apparently, Nintendo put quite a lot of effort into designing these new bosses, and they went through multiple different options. Personally, I never knew about this. I actually saw them, and boy oh boy, Nintendo had a lot of ideas for this new group. And today, we will take a look at all the concept art that they never ended up using. So let's dive right in. Now, in the end, Nintendo made 7 different Broodal designs, and most of these are incredibly different from the ones seen in the final game. Sadly enough though, I don't know exactly when they made all these different concepts, and why they got rid of them. But that won't stop us from talking about them! So let's start with our first one, the bridesmaid concept. This one is very fitting for Super Mario Odyssey because the whole game is about preventing the wedding between Bowser and Peach after all. Now, this version of the Broodals is quite different. Instead of being some sort of bunny-like creatures, it seems like they are Koopas just like the koopalings. But they are completely ready for a wedding, all of them are female, and they all sport a similar look and color scheme. Now, if they actually went with this design for the Broodals, I don't think they would have been wedding planners. Maybe they were guests and related to Bowser, and so he asked them to take care of Mario while he is preparing for the big wedding. Now, I don't know if any of this was the case, but it does make sense to an extent. Sadly enough, there's little to no info about these early concepts, so be ready for a lot of speculation. Alright, now the next concept art version of the Broodals is once again incredibly different from the ones seen in the game and even the previous ones we looked at. This is a version of the Broodals that isn't based on rabbits, but actually some sort of lizard or crocodile creatures. Now, when it comes to these, they are similar in a lot of ways to the ones seen in the game when it comes to body types, clothing, and powers. And according to the attached notes, it could be that these were either normal henchmen or children of Bowser. They do have a bit of a Koopa look after all, with a head and tail that is more similar to a crocodile. Personally, I quite like these. They are among my favorites when it comes to all the concept art drawings of the Broodals. And I think it would have been really cool if they actually used them, even for something else in the game that's not Broodal related. Now, the next set of Broodal art concept is quite unique. It is certainly the weirdest out of all, in my opinion at least. Here you can see the Broodals as some sort of birds, and a lot of them have completely different attacks compared to what we see in the final game. For example, one has a hat that looks like a boiling oil pot, and apparently if you attack it, oil will spill out. And aside from that, it shoots fire using its oil and 2 candles that it holds. So it's some sort of fire spitter. Now, that's a concept that never made it into Super Mario Odyssey. However, that isn't all. Another one seems to only have one leg and uses spherical ghosts that are tied to its head using bandages during the fight. And another one holds a lid and uses that as some sort of shield to block any attacks from Mario. It's quite clear that this version of the Broodals is incredibly different in almost every way, not just the design. Even their attacks and body types are very different from the ones seen in the final game. So I think this design was actually made really early on in development, before a lot of ideas were actually fleshed out. And in the end, a lot of these concepts didn't make the cut, and only the spewing attack as well as the ability of throwing a lot of hats remained. Now, for our next concept, we are again looking at one that was made quite early on in development. Well, that's what I think at least. Because a lot of these are quite unique and have different powers compared to the ones that we saw in the final game. All of them are designed after the different kingdoms and cultures seen in Super Mario Odyssey, like feudal Japan. And this is also the first one where every Broodal is unique. All of them are different creatures and have completely different looks. We got a mermaid, a Mexican Chinko skeleton, some sort of bird creature that shoots ice, and a samurai-style dragon. Personally, I love all these designs, and I kinda wish they went with something like this. I love it when Nintendo makes a bunch of very unique bosses. The last time they did that was in Super Mario Bros. For the DS, and I would like to see that return. And there's a good chance that will happen because they made more concepts similar to this one. Like this group of odd fellas. All of these are different, and the idea behind them is that they were bodyguards hired by Bowser to protect him in each kingdom. And all of these look different from the others. You have a crazy fire mage, some sort of cat boy, a fancy looking princess, and a knight that reminds me a bit of the mini-boss seen in the Snow Peak ruins from Twilight Princess. I just love the fact that all of these are completely different from the others. We have never really seen any of this in any other game. And there's one other set of concept art that also shows off a bunch of unique bosses that are based on normal enemies. You have a Monty Mole, a Buzzy Beetle with bombs, a Koopa Troopa, and a Piranha Plant. And I think this is really cool because, as some of you know, I have talked about the idea of introducing super versions of enemies as bosses before. In a lot of my boss idea videos for Breath of the Wild 2 and Super Mario Odyssey 2, I spoke about concepts similar to what Nintendo created here. However, there's one last set of concept art that is again very similar to an idea I discussed in a recent video where I talked about the koopalings returning in Super Mario Odyssey 2. It's a version of the Broodals that looks like a small circus troupe that was supposed to perform tricks at the wedding. And of course, they look like circus folk. One is a fire spitter, another juggles while standing on a ball, there's a magician, and also a strongman. And I had this exact idea for the koopalings as well, if they were to return in Super Mario Odyssey 2. And I swear I didn't get it from this concept art, I only recently saw it. Now, I think they got this idea from Super Mario 3D World, just like I did. That game has a number of circus-themed enemies after all. To be honest, I also think they will bring this concept back, even though they didn't use it in Super Mario Odyssey. And those were all the concept art designs for the Broodals that I could find. And I bet most of you didn't expect there were so many of them. Now, if I had to pick my favorite one, I would most likely go with the bodyguards because I just love their designs. And I'm also really curious how the battles with them would go, especially the Hat Boy and the Princess, because I have no idea what kind of powers they would have. So let's pray to the higher beings above that one day, some of these cool concepts actually appear in a Super Mario game. Thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this video. Tell me down below in the comments if you want to see more stuff like this, because there's a lot of weird concept art stuff and like beta game design and like unused stuff in Zelda and Mario games, and I quite like covering it, like I did back in the day on my Game Architects channel. That is dead now, but you can still watch those videos if you want. Just look up Game Architects, Lamau. Also, be sure to like, click subscribe and the bell button, and if you have any other ideas, tell them below in the comments, and I'll have a look at them. Love you.